Good evening, I'm Chris Sanachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Manitoba's Chief Medical Examiner, John Younes, has called for inquests into the deaths of 7 men who died in correctional institutions between 2020 and 2021. 5 out of the 7 died by suicide in 2020 at the Stony Mountain Institution just north of Winnipeg. Younes is also calling for an inquest into the death of William Amo, who was in custody when he died. APTN's Sierra Bettens reports.
Between March and December 2020, 39-year-old Adrian Young, 25-year-old Patrick Eaglestick, 32-year-old Farron Rowan, 36-year-old Kurt Harper, and 38-year-old Melvis Owen died by suicide at the Federal Stony Mountain Institution just outside Winnipeg. On Monday, the province notified media that Manitoba's Chief Medical Examiner, John Younes, has called for inquests into their deaths. Inquests are also being called for 36-year-old Jesse Thomas, who died from a drug overdose while incarcerated at Stony Mountain on November 19, 2021, and 45-year-old William Amo. Amo, an Anishinaabe man from Saugeen First Nation, died on February 14, 2021, after an altercation with several guards at the Headingley Provincial Jail. Amo's death was ruled a homicide. However, last September, Provincial Court acquitted Robert Jeffrey Morden, the guard who was charged in relation to Amo's death. Amo's family launched a civil suit against the province in February 2023. Their lawyer, Corey Sheffman, says the family has been waiting on an inquest to move forward.
The longer we go from William's death to an inquest, the less people are going to remember and the less relevant recommendations might be. The number one priority for William's family is to prevent what happened to him from happening to anyone else.
While he says swift action is necessary, he's also concerned about the 7 inquests being combined into one case.
It's important that we not bring together dissimilar cases where the result of that is going to be that the outcomes of those inquests will be watered down.
He says inquests will allow for more of the truth to come out and for recommendations to be made.
No one is going to be found guilty for anything at the inquest. That's not what the inquest is about. And so it's a really important opportunity to talk about policy changes, to talk about what went wrong and how to prevent it from happening again.
APTN reached out to Manitoba's Chief Medical Examiner for comment, but did not receive a response by airtime. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba's Minister for Accessibility, Nahanni Fontaine, released another apology to the deaf community on social media over the weekend. The apology comes after she was caught on a hot mic saying she was distracted on stage by a sign language interpreter at a graduation ceremony 2 weeks ago. Have a listen to a part of her new apology.
A couple of weeks ago, I used language that caused harm to the deaf and hard of hearing community. That moment doesn't reflect how I feel about deaf and hard of hearing Manitobans, ASL interpreters, or accessibility as a whole. I appreciate ASL is more than just language. It's deeply connected to deaf culture and community. I take full responsibility for my words, full stop.
This video was posted to Fontaine's Instagram page on Sunday. It shows her saying she is sorry to the deaf community alongside an ASL interpreter. She also said she will participate in deaf and deaf culture training to better understand the community, and that a deaf or hard of hearing matriarch will be added to her government's Matriarch Circle Advisory Group. Deborah Ozar, a Métis College graduate who was at the ceremony where Fontaine made her previous remarks, says she is happy with Fontaine's new apology, but says it should have been done this way much sooner. Minister Fontaine previously apologized in a written statement and on CBC Radio.
Even in the moments of frustration, I will always be mindful that my words remain inclusive and respectful. I'm human. I made a mistake, but I will do better, and I will keep showing up and continue the work of building a truly inclusive Manitoba for everyone. So again,
The wildfire season is far from over in Saskatchewan, with fires still spreading and threatening communities across the province. As firefighters battle the flames in the north, the effects are being felt across the province. There are currently 55 active fires across Saskatchewan. The Muskeg fire, one of the largest, is near Beauval and La Plonge Lake, where firefighters are defending properties and trying to contain the flames after lightning sparked wildfires there. The mayor of Beauval says the village is nearly surrounded by wildfires and fire crews are trying to defend the town and its properties. 9 communities are under evacuation in Saskatchewan, including Beauval, Canoe Lake, Canoe Narrows, Jans Bay, Montreal Lake, Pine House, La Plonge Indian Reserve, Pachinak, and English River First Nation. Many officials are hoping for rain in the coming days to help fight the fires. Wildfire smoke has also triggered special air quality statements in Prince Albert and Saskatoon. Wildfire smoke also reached Saskatchewan's capital this weekend as the Saskatchewan Roughriders were set to play against the Calgary Stampeders Friday night in Regina, but poor air quality left fans waiting, unsure if the game would go ahead. Fans waited for hours in the smoke-filled air at Mosaic Stadium on Friday, hoping to see the Riders take on the Calgary Stampeders at 7 p.m. At approximately 10 p.m., the game was postponed to Saturday afternoon. Due to the quick turnaround, stadium vendors couldn't restock in time, so the Riders temporarily lifted their no food and drink policy, allowing fans to bring in snacks and non-alcoholic beverages. The Riders lost that game against Calgary 24-10. Head coach Corey Mace said the team was ready to play Friday night, but the weather didn't cooperate.
Honestly, we really thought we'd have a chance to kick the ball off last night, and certainly want to do that for our fans here, man. And that's the first thing. I just want to, I know we're going to move on, but I want to show love to all the fans that stuck it out last night. That was unbelievable. So we appreciate you, but we kind of expect that here, but just awesome.
Last Friday marked 35 years since the 1990 siege on Gonisitake began, and every year a commemoration is held for that siege. But for the first time, a gathering was held in Montreal with representatives of both Gonisitake and its sister community, Ganawage. And as APTN Savannah Craig reports, land back was a major theme this year.
They don't want people to get hurt over a golf course. Native people are fed up with being pushed around and our land taken.
35 years has passed since the 1990 siege on Gonisitake, when the federal government sent 4,000 soldiers into the Mohawk communities of Gonisitake and Ganawage. After a blockade formed in Gonisitake to prevent the neighboring town of Oka from building a golf course on part of Gonisitake's land known as the Pines, which included Kanien'kehá:ka burial grounds.
We're not going to forget it. And it's not something to forget because it's not fixed.
A commemoration was held in downtown Montreal to remember the 78-day standoff.
It's not a celebration for us, for me anyways, because Marcel Lemay was killed for a golf course. A man lost his life. So for me, it's a commemoration. Especially considering that we were shot at and were almost killed by the Sûreté du Québec.
The commemoration is an annual event held in Gonisitake, but it's the first time one was held in Place du Canada in downtown Montreal, where more than 100 people gathered.
Coming to Montreal, we thought would be a bigger voice, a bigger space to maybe call attention, have some calls to action, and help us to move forward in Gonisitake.
Wanda Gabriel was a young mother at the time of the siege. Her cousin, Ellen Gabriel, was the spokesperson at the time. She says the defending of Kanien'kehá:ka land didn't conclude in 1990.
How are we going to stop the land theft? Because they keep going. They're relentless.
Gabriel says Gonisitake continues to be threatened by land grab.
We're not out of the woods yet, and we still have people who want to develop. We have the niobium mine that people want to reopen.
This is Mohawk land!
Former AFN-QL Regional Chief Ghislain Picard says what happened in 1990 was impactful for all Indigenous people.
The issue at hand back in 1990 is still very much the same issue today. It's an issue regarding lands, and to me, that's probably the kind of message that this commemoration has to carry. How do we go about settling issues that have been, long-standing for decades?
Some here today are not just commemorating 35 years since 1990, but they're also demanding these calls to action to be implemented, some of which include upholding UNDRIP, establishing a community healing fund, and land back.
Another call to action is, for me, it's such a big event that happened in this country in 1990, and it's not in the history books. It's not in Quebec's history books, it's not in Canada's history books, it's not even in our own history books in the community, and I'd love to see it in our history books so that people can know and understand the implication of what happened.
And the original dispute has yet to be resolved.
The land dispute that has been going on for over 300 years and has not been resolved 35 years later, I think it's really important for people to realize that and understand that.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Montreal.
As Canada moves ahead on resource development, we'll speak to an expert on the topic and how there are already some Indigenous communities taking the lead with similar projects. We'll be right back. Welcome back. There's been a lot of talk about projects in the so-called national interests in recent months. Prime Minister Mark Carney has not named any specific projects or groups, but those announcements are expected in the near future. In northern Manitoba, several projects are already moving along with the support of Indigenous communities. For more on this, Dennis Ward recently spoke to Mario Pinto, the Vice President of Research at the University of Manitoba.
Mario, thanks so much for being with us. Can you tell us about some of the projects that might be viewed as in the national interest in northern Manitoba?
Certainly can, and it's a pleasure to be here, first of all. I think we've all heard in recent weeks the Prime Minister's plans for nation-building projects. And I think the University of Manitoba, and Manitoba in particular as a province, are well situated because of our past relationships that we've built together with Indigenous communities, with industry, with government partners to really build sustained partnerships that we think will serve us well to solve some problems of substance, both for Indigenous peoples, but also for non-Indigenous peoples.
Can you tell us about those projects?
Certainly, I think one of our major projects is providing accessibility to the Arctic. And we've been on this for several years now, with special emphasis on connectivity, bringing peoples together to ensure safety of trappers and hunters on the ice, for example, and to ask the question, how can we contribute further to economic development and economic reconciliation with Indigenous peoples? So we work closely with the Dene and Cree in the Churchill area and with the Inuit peoples in the Western Hudson Bay.
Now, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew has been taking some heat recently about support for bigger energy projects. So what's your sense of support among First Nations for projects that you're working on and have mentioned?
Well, I think the key is to do this with full consultation and complete sensitivity for the biosphere, right? So two very important things. And that comes back to our sustained partnerships, our deep relationships. One has to build trust. So nothing without full consent and full participation. So in fact, University of Manitoba researchers are the supporting cast, providing information and research on, for example, the best routes, minimum damage to the biosphere, right? Assessing the impact of oil spills, designing systems that will minimize oil spills, And if there are oil spills, how does one mitigate that? So new methods of cleanup. So I think one has to be cognizant of the fact that these could harm the environment, these high energy projects. But if done intelligently and with sensitivity, full consultation, one can arrive at a common solution. I should point out that this does not refer only to fossil fuels. In the future, we will be transporting other forms of energy. For example, green ammonia, where one can liquefy that as a carrier of hydrogen and transport it to various centers, various countries. And so the port of Churchill then becomes a very important asset when one wants to do that. So the key is to be very aware of the possible harm that can be done. We enlist our conservation biologists, our anthropologists, and consistent with our strategic research plan, where one of the themes is human rights and social justice. So we would never want to go against that ideology.
Just really quickly here, Mario, obviously the federal government seems to be in a rush here, passing legislation to get things moving quickly. How quickly could some of these projects get off the ground?
Well, I think it comes back to answer the question, I have to talk about climate change, right? With the global warming, the Hudson Bay is navigable now for about 5.5 months of the year. Our researchers have modeled the future impacts of climate change, and they predict that by 2100 we'll have 7 to 9 months of navigable water. So that combined with icebreakers, for example, more resistant ships, really opens up the shipping season. So I don't want to raise expectations falsely, but a great deal of research has to be done in the feasibility of the port. One may have to do a little bit more dredging. One may have to relocate certain components, but we're certainly well on track to study those effects and to make reasonable predictions going forward. We don't want to rush this. We have to make sure that we have, for example, a contiguous path for open water vessels that will also minimize harm to the biosphere. Right? So I think all those considerations may slow things down a little bit, but we have tremendous teams ready to work and in partnership with our Indigenous colleagues.
Mario, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate you enlightening us on some of the work that's underway.
My pleasure. Please call on me anytime.
A man from the Garden River First Nation is working to educate people about lacrosse. That story when we come back. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. It's time now for our photo of the day. This is an adorable and cute photo of this year's champion powwow dancers in the toddler division for the recent Mosquito Grizzly Bears Head Lean Man First Nation powwow in Saskatchewan. Beautiful picture of the young ones, and thanks to photographer Curtis Cameron for that photo. Remember to send us your photos to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Time now for a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Apologies, no weather there. We're down and out for today. Lacrosse has been played for centuries, although not always in its current form. The sport is said to have been played by Indigenous people in North America as early as the 12th century, with groups across Turtle Island playing various forms of the game. A man from Garden River First Nation east of Sault Ste. Marie is working to educate his people on the history of the game, which he says has deep roots in his community. APTN's Mike McDonald reports.
This is Frank Bello, a master lacrosse stick maker. Bello has been making sticks for nearly 15 years. He says while the game we know now as lacrosse originated in North America long before European contact, other forms of the game, such as the Gaelic Irish game of hurling, have existed for at least as long, which he says is evidence of a spiritual connection between the people of Turtle Island and those overseas.
That's just part of that dream we all got. everybody got a vision to make to play a game, but we all interpreted it in our own way.
Bello says he began making lacrosse sticks as a means of beating addiction. The process begins with selecting the ideal piece of wood.
First of all, I got to wander around the bush for a little bit, looking for a good tree. Then I look at that tree and make sure there's no defects in the bark. So I want to make sure I got good clean bark, no rosettes, no nothing, make sure the bark's not twisted.
Once the tree is selected, Bello begins cutting it into pieces. The pieces are then carved using hand tools, as well as some unique measuring tools. Bello then prepares the sticks for shaping.
Once that's all worked out, usually if I do that, I got a fire going. And I got a big pot of water. I actually got a couple tubs there that I made a little clam out of it where I stick then I just boil it up for a couple hours, and 3 hours later, you can bend it. Probably one finger, I can walk around that jig and bend it, and then I tie it. I use a tourniquet. I got a couple pieces of rope. Somehow I would get around that jig. I tie it up, and I take a stick and I twist that till it's tight, and I take it off, and then I kind of loosen it or adjust it as a bit. Sometimes I have to make it a little bit bigger, so I have to slowly let go of the tourniquet until I get the bend to where I want it. And then once I achieve that, I just tighten it back up again, tie the one end off, so it doesn't come back. Set that aside for a day or two.
Bello says his family has been woodworking for generations, and he even uses the same tools his grandfather used.
I get to use my grandpa's old. You got an old draw knife here, so I've got some tools. So which is kind of nice because he left that for me. Plus he also he told me how to do the woodworking. And same my dad, we were all up the bush. So I got that to thank for that. I have the ability to cut a tree and busy the car. So it's all. And I just I take good care of them, keep them sharp, treat them with respect. But mind you, I still get the odd nick and things once so, but I still got most of my fingers. But it's just knowing it's like working with wood. Your ancestors there, but no, I know for sure my grandpa had that file and was doing his thing with it.
Bello says while he has slowed down a bit, he has no plans to stop making sticks.
I'm going to be doing this as long as I can do it. I plan on it makes me happy. It keeps me going. It keeps me moving. And it gets me off the couch. Mind you, I like sitting on the couch once in a while now because But yeah, now I'll just figure out when to rest. And I know I can't make the sticks that I used to make or as many. And I'm getting smart enough. I started to get some electronic tools. So now instead of having to sand or file everything, I got a planer or I got an electric sander. Plus I got the planer for doing all my shaping. So that that saves like axe time. It's kind of. Because I used to do 50 sticks with axe. And then, like I say, you get a bit older, everything's kind of slowed down. So now you get a bit smarter. You get smarter, just take your time, and it's just, if your body will let you know what you need. So yeah, I'm not young anymore, I ain't gonna push it. So this is what I gotta get, and it's like, woohoo. So it'll keep me going a bit longer.
Ultimately, Bello sells the sticks to people who just ask for one personally or on social media. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Garden River First Nation.
That is definitely a man outstanding in his field. Great story, fine, Mike. And that's your evening newscast for this Monday. We're back again tomorrow for your daytime newscast at 12 p.m. noon Winnipeg time. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho kwana. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Ekse.